friends? Again, Bryant and Elisha with you this morning. Dave, he's on vacation, so you'll be rocking with us for a little bit, but we've got a ton to talk about. I'll be completely honest with you, Elisha. When I went to sleep last night, I was doing some show prep last night to get ready. The plan was, I'll be completely honest, the plan was for me, I was going to get up this morning. I've been getting up early, going to the gym, getting a workout in. This is completely behind the curtains, and nobody listening really cares about this, but I'll just say it. I used to work at ATC Fitness, which great gym. Free publicity. I know Greg talks about them a lot, but it's a great gym. Love going there. I used to work there, so I have a couple of friends that still work there, and one of them will text me like constantly. He'll be like, "Dude, it's been a month. You haven't been to the gym. It's been 2 months. You haven't been to the gym." I'm like, I'll get in there next week. So finally, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to start going to the gym again. And so I've been going semi-consistently. But I didn't go Monday because obviously I've been going at like 7:30, and like I woke up a little late Monday, and I was like, oh man, I got to be here at 10 for Dave's show. I don't want to risk it. So I was going to do it this morning. It was storming this morning when I woke up. I was like, I'm going back to sleep. Whatever. So last night I was trying to get all this prep done because I was like, I'm probably not going to have much time tomorrow morning. And I was looking at it, I was like, wow, there's not a ton to talk about tomorrow. Like, obviously, there's plenty to talk about, but it's not like breaking news or like, hey, let's like tomorrow we're going to be breaking down game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, and oh man, OKC, they look sluggish and tired, and Minnesota, whatever, But today, it really wasn't that. Oh boy, was I wrong. News all over the place, and college basketball news, which I love college basketball, but I did not expect this much college basketball news to be circulating. One thing we'll talk about a little bit later in this segment, but that just broke. Boogie Fland has committed to Florida, so the defending national champion Florida Gators, they get a little better at the guard position. That was a area of need. Obviously, losing Walter Clayton Jr., need to bring in some guards, and we'll talk about that. He was on a visit yesterday. I believe that Florida is either visiting the White House today or tomorrow, one of those days. So they got Boogie Fland in real quickly after he withdrew from the NBA draft last week. Got him in real quick, got him on a visit. It felt like for a while that if Boogie Fland was going to take his name out of the draft, that Florida would be the ideal landing spot for him. But obviously, he goes on the visit, and they do a good job. Ty Golden does a good enough job to get him to commit. I know a weird season for Boogie Fland, I would say. He was not great when he was playing early in the season. He gets injured. He misses a ton of time. You could argue that Arkansas was better when he wasn't on the floor because he was. He's taking a lot of shots. His usage rate was extremely high on that team. And so when he was out, it felt like some of those other guys were able to shine. I know Jonell Davis looked a lot better when he wasn't on the floor, when Boogie Fland wasn't on the floor. So I think he's still a really good guard. He's a 5-star for a reason. I always say that I don't put a ton of stock into stars and what these random people say about you in terms of ranking you, but it's very hard for someone that's a 5-star to just be a complete flop and complete bust. So I still think he's a really good player. I think he can contribute in the SEC at Florida. And I think, this is starting to be a team that has the possibility of going deep again in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, they also got Xavier Lee, who, I think some people, college basketball fans, are familiar with, the Princeton point guard, but I don't think a lot of casual people are probably familiar with him. Good guard, was on a really bad Princeton team last year. Very smart, obviously, going to Princeton. So this could be a very fun team that Todd Golden has now, and maybe a possibility to go back-to-back.
Yeah, especially if they get Alex Condon back, too, to play the center position. That would be very big for them. Boogie Fland, watching him last year, kind of reminded me of DJ Wagner's freshman season, where he saw the flashes, but he was really inconsistent and could never really get a rhythm. And he was much better his sophomore year, so we'll see if Boogie Fland can do the same. Yeah,
and so that huge news for Florida. The other news coming down for Memphis, and obviously Greg and Eli talking about this before they got done, another commitment for Memphis and the Tigers. Memphian Curtis Givens has committed to the University of Memphis this morning. Now, the questions start. The questions officially, kind of start going about, hey, this team's getting pretty full. It's a lot of guards on this team. You look now, I know the guys were trying to figure it out of how many guys are now committed for next year's team. I have kept a running tally of what the roster looks like for Memphis. So now with the addition of Curtis Givens, that would make 13 players on this roster, including Dante Harris, which we assume he is coming back. He did not enter the transfer portal. He has a year of eligibility remaining. Everyone is assuming that Dante Harris will be on this team next year. That does not include Dane Danger, who is still waiting for a waiver. So if you know anything about scholarship rules, you can have 13 guys on a team. But once the house settlement goes through, that will expand, and Jason Munns has, I believe he puts this in every story he writes about the Tigers rosters. Hey, it's 13 right now, but it is believed that at some point this summer it is going to expand to 15 guys. So if you have 15 guys, well then Dane Danger, come on down. If you get your waiver, you can have one more. But right now, looking at this roster, it is very clear to see that very, 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 very guard wing oriented. You look at some of these guys, Dante Harris, 6 foot. Doug McDaniel, 5'11". Sincere Parker, 6'3". Zachary Davis, 6'8". Ashton Hardaway, 6'8". Julius Thedford, 6'4". Quante Berry, 6'4". Daniel Vera-Tuck, I don't have a height for, but is a more of a 1 or 2, a smaller guard. I think he's about 6'5". Or so, 6'4", 6'5". Felipe Patino, another guy that's about 6'3". You've got Mason Matthews, I believe is his name, from Lane. He is 6'8". So, you have some size there, but pretty much all of these guys that are 6'8" have been described more as wings than they are bigs, which is okay. If you want a super athletic team, I'm completely fine with that. I remember earlier when Zachary Davis committed, and he is this 6'8", 175-pound wing that could be a 4, that is really athletic. And here's the thing about him. He is, again, 6'8" and is considered a 3 or a 4. If you go to his 247 Sports page out of high school, he is listed as a point guard. He was running point guard in high school. So I think it's, a fine idea to have some of these bigs that, hey, if we got to get Zachary Davis the ball to bring it up the court, we're completely fine with that. He can do that. And so I don't necessarily think some of these guys that maybe lack size in terms of playing the front court is necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to need them to play big. You're going to need them. If they're playing the 4, they got to go out there and rebound. They got to go out there and play defense. And a lot of these guys, I've noticed that every time someone's describing the type of player they are, defense is included. It feels like a lot of these guys are really good defensively. Doug McDaniels gets a lot of steals. He is really active defensively. We knew that was a thing about Dante Harris, and we saw it here as well. And he is a good defensive guard. The same thing with Zachary Davis, is really good defensively. So you bring in a lot of these guys that are good defensively. I think that's a fine idea, even if you are a little small, because I've heard a lot of people, Aaron Bradshaw is the big 7-footer, but I've heard people describe him as more of a 4 than a 5. And as long as Dane Danger doesn't have a waiver, at least right now with this roster that's constructed, he would be your center. And so, I think a 7-footer can play center, whether it's looks more like a 4 or looks more like a 5. I think he can play it. But this is a team that's very guard-oriented. You've got a couple shooters, but, what is shooting going to look like? Because you look at a lot of these guys, and they're more, downhill and or just not really proven shooters. I know Ashton Hardaway is a guy that ever since out of high school, he's been talked about as a shooter, as a scorer. But we didn't see it his freshman year at Memphis. He didn't play enough to show it his second year last year at St. Mary's. I've heard people say, man, you should see the work he's putting in. You should see, these workouts and what he's doing and yada, yada, yada. I'm excited to see it. I hope that he looks really good shooting the ball. But, I think it's just a really interesting roster right now. I say all that, and I'll be completely honest, I had some of these same concerns last year going into the season with that team. And obviously, I remember last year after the North Carolina game and after the Alabama game, I was one of them, but everybody was screaming, this team cannot shoot. Shooting is going to be a horrific issue this year, and if shooting's an issue with this team, it's probably going to be a rough season. What happens? They figured out the shooting. The shooting was fine. For most of the year, they were top 10 in three-point percentage, even though they weren't taking a ton of them. They were just making the shots that they took, and ultimately they win the AAC regular season, they win the AAC championship tournament, and they go on and obviously get a 5 seed, which is great. Ultimately, lose in the first round, but 5 seed conference championship. All in all, a really, really impressive season for the Tigers. So I don't want to make any crazy assumptions about this roster just quite yet. I will just say that it has been interesting how Penny Hardaway has gone about this offseason. It's been a lot of guards. It feels like every time you hear guys visiting, that a guy is committing, it's a guard. And so, how does that work? I think he probably feels pretty good about Dane Danger. I think, it's really a question because I hear a lot of people, and I want your thoughts on this as well, Elisha. I hear so many people talk about, not many big men visited campus this offseason. So that's got to mean that Penny Hardaway feels good about Dane Danger coming back. Sure. But at the same time, I don't think you can just assume, oh, yeah, Dane Danger's coming back. Because I do think this team needs one or two more bigs, center type of guys, and they just don't have it. Because let's be completely honest. Let's just say this is the roster right now. Dane Danger doesn't come back, and you're looking at your 13. Maybe house settlement clears, and you add 14 or 15. But let's just say it's a regular year pre-house settlement, and you're running these 13 guys out there. Aaron Bradshaw's not playing 40 minutes. When he goes to the bench, 6'8" and under is what you're running out there. So, look, I think you can be very competitive in the American with that. I don't know. I'll say this. I was the biggest flag waver for the American 2 years ago. Not so much last year. 2 years ago, I was out there going, this is not a bad conference. There are some good teams in this conference. And you saw there were a lot of guys that went to the next level from the American. That, Sion James goes to Duke, and 3 guys, I believe, three guys at least from Charlotte went to play for P14. So, there was talent in the American. There was talent in the American last year. You're seeing some of these guys. I know Rice has had a couple of guys that have gone up and gone to P14. So, they're talented teams. And the thing about the American is that stuff's happening to a lot of these teams. Like, if you're playing at UTSA and you're showing that you're a good player, you're not going to stay at UTSA very long. And so they've got to go out there and get more guys that are probably under-recruited guys that you haven't heard much about, guys that are coming down from that next level. So it's very hard to say, hey, this is what the American's going to be this year. Hey, this is what this team's going to be this year, because we just really don't know. But if the American's like it was last year, yeah, you can probably compete with 6'8" and lower. I heard them talking about Purdue. It's going to be tough to match up with Purdue if Aaron Bradshaw's sitting on the bench with all of the size they have. They mentioned Oscar Clough, the big man from South Dakota State, who at one point in this transfer portal cycle was the number 1 overall transfer portal player before Lewis from St. John's entered, and before P.J. Haggerty, and before Yaxel, before all those guys entered. Oscar Clough was the number 1 transfer portal player in the country. Memphis was after him. There was a time where I believe Memphis believed that they were going to get a visit. I don't know. I don't think he actually did visit. But Memphis was in on him. Memphis thought they were going to get a visit. He ultimately commits to Purdue. He's going to be a big guy for them. Trey Kaufman-Wren is a guy that showed last year how good of a player he is. They've got guards that can shoot the leather off the ball. I don't think you put leather on a ball, but you know what I mean. The cover off the ball. I think that's the saying. They've got this is something that they mentioned, but we were talking about it over there. They've got a 7'4" center who's a true sophomore this year. Look, I don't want to predict anybody's career, but Zach Edey was at one time a very little talked about 7'4" center that was a 3-star in high school that was barely getting any minutes at Purdue. So, hey, Purdue's got that knack for bigs. They know how to develop bigs. They've shown it year after year after year after year. So, I want to know your opinion, Elisha. I want to know everyone's opinion. Text in Sissy's Log Cabin, text line 901-360-8255. If you want to call in, by all means, call in. Let us know what you think of this Tiger roster. Plenty of time. I mean, season doesn't get started, it feels like forever. So things can change, things can happen. I mentioned the House settlement can go through, and they could get up to 15 scholarship players. But Elisha, your thoughts on Curtis Givens, because I mentioned that he committed, but we haven't really talked about him as a player. Your thoughts on Curtis Givens committing and the makeup of this team. I will say this, I think I did not want to focus on Curtis Givens as much in that little rant because I don't want this to be about Curtis Givens. Like, I don't want people to think Bryant hates Curtis Givens on this Tiger roster. Because I don't. Like, I think Curtis Givens is a fine player. I just think that him being the last guard that is committed makes it a little more awkward. But your thoughts on everything we're talking about?
Yeah, starting with Curtis Givens. I watched a good deal of him at LSU last year. I watched a lot of SEC basketball, and it was a very underwhelming season. He shot 27% from the floor, which if you come out and do that again, it does not look good for you. You're probably not going to get much burn. But I think he fits the mold of exactly the type of player that Penny Hardaway wants on his team. He's going to get down defensively. He's going to play fast. I think part of, into the bigger discussion of the makeup of this team, even with, Aaron Bradshaw being the only big, Aaron Bradshaw's the type of big who can play fast. And I know that that's the emphasis that Penny kind of put on the team last year. And I think even more so this year with the lack of size. They're going to have to play fast. They're going to have to force turnovers. They're going to have to, get down and run. And, I still think that the makeup of the team, it can definitely be problematic. Like you said, and I completely agree with this, I don't think it'll matter necessarily as much in AAC play. I think that they can, still skate by for the most part based on the talent they have on the roster. Sure. But whenever you get to, the out-of-conference games with Ole Miss and Mississippi State, with Louisville, with Purdue being the big one right now, I see, very glaring problems that arise with that. And especially not knowing if Dane Danger is going to be back for sure does not, make you feel any more certain. But I think I think that this is the type of team that will really show us who Penny Hardaway is as a coach. I think that this is going to be a team that has been built to play his style. It's a completely new group pretty much. And they're going to have to really buy into that to, achieve that level of success. Yeah. But I think Curtis Givens has a good opportunity to kind of right some of the wrongs. I saw some good flashes, especially, like I said, on the defensive side of the ball. It's just going to be, can he find his game on the offensive end consistently enough to stay in the rotation?
So 3 things based on what you said, based on the text we got. I want to start with the text because Matt texts in. Matt, good morning to you. I guess I can still tell people good morning. It's only 10:15. Good morning to you. Hope you're having a great morning. Thanks for the text. Matt says, I think it's something that both of us have kind of mentioned when talking about the roster that's currently constructed. Matt says, I think when it comes to roster, Penny has shown that he will come through whether it's with what he currently has or getting another commit later on. Trust in Penny. That's kind of what we've both been saying. You were saying that this could be a good opportunity for Penny Hardaway to really show the type of coach he is. I obviously mentioned last year we had a lot of concerns with that team. That team was awesome. People were, by the end of the season, people were having conversations. One, is this Penny Hardaway's best team? Is this the most fun team? What team was better, this team or Kendrick Davis's team? Which team had the better two-man game, Kendrick's team or this team? Like, the questions were there, and it was a really fun team. Nobody would have expected that before the season. So absolutely, again, it's May. It is crazy to be talking about breaking down roster for college basketball in May. So much can happen. I know a lot of these guys have signed, so we have a pretty good idea of what the roster will look like. But obviously, if there's a guy that hadn't signed or whatever happens, could decommit, go somewhere else, you could see a lot of change. We've already seen guys that Memphis has been in on that have committed somewhere else and decommitted and are back in the portal. So, yeah, a lot can change. Matt, thanks for the text. Going back to what you said, I think you made some really good points of Curtis Givens last year as a true freshman playing in the SEC. While he struggled, while you've called it a disappointing season, I heard Eli call it a disappointing season. earlier today. I've heard other people write and talk about how it was a disappointing season last year. He still played in 32 games last year. So the coaching staff at LSU saw enough out of him that said, you're not playing great right now, but we need you out there in every game we play this year. Now, look, LSU was not very good last year. They had a lot of flaws, and so it's a lot easier when you're really struggling and you're bottom of the SEC to say, hey, let's get the freshmen in there. Let's get them some burn. But he was playing minutes, while it might have only been about 18 minutes a game, he was playing in SEC play, and you look at it, I think these are valuable minutes for a true freshman to get. 29 minutes against Tennessee, 21 minutes against Mississippi State, 24 minutes against Kentucky, 16 minutes against Texas A&M, 26 minutes in the last game against Mississippi State. So even though he's struggling out there, he's out there seeing SEC play every single night, which I think will really help him. Another thing, you mentioned Penny Hardaway in this roster and kind of what he can do with it. I think this is kind of the roster that Penny Hardaway has wanted to put together ever since taking the job at Memphis. Very guard-oriented. Guys that can get up and down the court. We've seen Penny Hardaway wants to get up and down the court. He wants to play fast. But at the same time, a team that is led by defense. We saw early on in Penny Hardaway's career that defense was everything to him. Defense was first. That's kind of been the saying. If there's a guy that's not on the court that isn't getting playing time, and you wonder why is he not on the court, it's probably because he can't play defense. That's kind of been the calling card for Penny Hardaway. If you can play defense, you're going to be on the court. Can't play defense, we're going to find somebody else that can. Every single player, I mentioned it, that has committed to this team, it's been something about their defense has been talked about in describing them. I just pulled up Curtis Givens' 247 page, and they have a high school scouting report. And in the high school scouting report given out by Adam Finkelstein over at CBS, it says, he's also a productive defender who is willing to be physical on that end of the floor as well. So even in high school, Curtis Givens was, people were talking about, made sure to point out his defense. So, I do think this is going to be a team that is going to get after it defensively, and, that could be something that could really help them, even if they're undersized in a couple of these games. So Curtis Givens, I'm excited about it. I think another thing is that, look, it's hard to guarantee anything in the wild world of the transfer portal. But now you look at this roster, and you've got two guys that are going to be sophomore, that are going to be true sophomores, that will be on your roster next year, in Curtis Givens and Julius Thedford. Curtis Givens, underwhelming season, but was playing in the SEC at LSU. Julius Thedford, really good season, got injured, missed a lot of time, but was playing at Western Kentucky. So you've got, a guy that I think, I don't want to say coming up a level, but obviously getting to a more prestigious team, let's say, and then you've got a guy that's going down from the SEC to the American. But you've got two guys that are very young that can stick around and really be a part of this team building and maybe bring some continuity to the roster. So we'll see how this team looks. And obviously, again, a lot of time before we really see anything about this team or really need to get to like wins and losses or anything to that about roster makeup. A couple more things about Tiger basketball before we get to a break. And one of them, I do want feedback from the text line. If anybody wants to give their feedback. Jason Munns tweeted this out an hour ago. Again, let us know, 901-360-8255. I will start this off by asking you, Elisha, because I really don't know this. How old were you when John Calipari left the University of Memphis?
I was 9 or 10 years old.
Okay, so you remember some of the John Calipari.
I have a vague idea.
Tenure. Do you have the same feeling that a lot of Memphis fans have for John Calipari?
Probably not as vivid. I don't have as vivid of an opinion on John Calipari, but I definitely understand why the fans who have been here for a long time feel the way that they do. So yeah, I understand, but I personally don't.
So this was Jason Munns an hour ago. He tweeted out, and there's a story. I'll be completely honest. I've not read the story yet. But it says, new, UNLV coach Josh Pastner was back in Memphis last week. I spoke to him one-on-one. He had a lot to say about Memphis, about the Tigers, about Penny Hardaway, about coming back to FedEx Forum in November, and about John Calipari. Quote, they should build a statue of Coach. Do you think the University of Memphis should build a statue of John Calipari?
I'm sorry, Coach Passner. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I do not. I don't. I don't think that the body of work is there. I don't think that he part of it too is what you mean to the community, and John Calipari brought in a great era of Memphis basketball, but I just don't think it's warranted. I just don't think so.
So I want to know everyone's thoughts. Should Memphis build a statue of John Calipari? I loved that quote when I saw it earlier today, because that is a hilarious quote from John Calipari. Obviously, Josh Pastner worked with John Calipari as an assistant before obviously getting the head coaching job. We got a text message from Reggie. Good morning, Reggie. Hope you're having a great morning. Penny is a 5-guy coach. He is not a 2-superstar guy coach. Defense and speed from all 5 guys on the floor, not a 2-man and everyone else. I think you're absolutely right, Reggie, and that goes back to, I think this is a roster that Penny Hardaway has been wanting to build ever since getting the job at Memphis, of guys that can run up and down the floor, guys that are going to be fast. I remember very early in Penny Hardaway's career as the Memphis coach, which I act like that's been a long time. It's, what is this going to be, year 8? I guess that is a fairly long time. But, in the first or second year, it was like, hey, you're going to go out there, you're going to give us like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to get you out and we're going to get somebody else in. We're going to be fresh. We're going to be running up and down the court. And so I do think with all of these guards, with these type of guys, they can play fast. They can play that way. And again, defense. It feels like all of these guys have a defensive knack. They are, good defensive players. And let's be honest, the last couple of years, you've had guys out there that great players, great offensive weapons, liabilities on the defensive end. I don't want to throw out any names. David Jones, but you had some guys that just were not very good defensively. They're great offensively. They were not very good defensively. And so, if you can have guys that can produce on the offensive end, but lock down defensively, like, hey, I wouldn't mind having a couple of Virginia games in there. Like, I don't love it. I mean,
a couple of 40 to 39s.
Yeah, like 80 to 70 is a lot more entertaining than like 54 to 49, but like, I'll take it. Like, a win's a win, however it comes. So, who knows? Again, may talk for a sport that begins in November. So much can change, and I'm sure things will change before they actually get on the court, whether it's the regular season or in a preseason game, before we really get a look at this team. But big news that Memphian Curtis Givens, has committed to the University of Memphis. I should also say Memphis yesterday evening, a lot of guys announcing 2026, 2027 guys announcing that they received scholarship offers from Memphis, guys that were at the EYBL event over the weekend in Memphis. So Tiger coaching staff extremely active over the last couple of days. But we need to get to a break. When we return, we're going to talk about Game 1 tonight of the Western Conference Finals, and something that I have to look into over the break that, if this is true, we will certainly talk about. Supposedly, according to a couple of tweets I'm seeing right now, Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick are not dating anymore. They're engaged.
Oh, I thought that was going a different direction.
No, supposedly, Bill Belichick has put a ring on Jordan Hudson. So I need to look into this and see if this is true. But when we come back, we're going to talk a lot of NBA hoops. Game 1 tonight, OKC and Minnesota. We'll talk about that next. You're listening to Wolo and Friends.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Sports 56.
I think a lot about golf, and when I think golf, I think Miramichi. Did you know Miramichi Golf Course offers membership? It's a great way to play more golf for less out of pocket. Their memberships run for $300 a month plus tax, and that includes unlimited rounds and range balls, no extra card fees, priority tee time booking, and discounts in the pro shop. Oh, by the way, there's no initiation fee. Miramichi green fees, they'll allow you to choose the right rate at the right time on the right day for your needs. If morning tee times are more important important, you can book up to 14 days ahead of time to reserve your spot. If rate is more important to you, there are discounted evening rates available that you can choose from. Miramichi is now open on Mondays, and you'll find the lowest rate is on Thursday. Sometimes you just need to escape the hustle and bustle of life. Miramichi Golf Course provides just the right place to solve that need. The name Miramichi means place of happy retreat. When you need a quiet, peaceful round of golf, please make your way to Miramichi. Pools, and more pools. Yes, it is pool time at Family Leisure. Family Leisure is already booking pool installs, so you need to buy now and get on that list. 24-foot pools start at $19.99 install. Liners are starting at $2.99. You're going to need some pool accessories, so they're all up to 20% off. Not quite ready for a pool? That's fine. Get a 5 or 6 person hot tub starting at under $7,000. You can also go for a swim spa or perhaps a cold plunge tub. Those are now $2,000 off. Get patio furniture up to 50% off on select sets. Buy your pool now. Get on that install list. Mention this commercial, and your install is free. It's underlined in the in bold print, so you know it's big. It's pool time at Family Leisure. Family Leisure, Whitten Road at I-40, where family and fun come together.
So you need to sell your house? I have the solution. Call 901-406-1101. That's 901-406-1101. Call my buddy Bill and I buy house in the area. As is, it's literally as simple as that. Just pick up your phone. Call 901-406-1101. That's 901-406-1101. Call my buddy Bill and I buy houses. Guaranteed to close in 5 days. If you need to sell your house fast, call Bill at 901-406-1101. Bill and I buy houses. Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right and naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about everything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys, beyond the bottle, Tito's has gained a reputation for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits around the world to serve its community and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's and learn more at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, mainly 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Well, I asked about John Calipari and should he get a statue. Reggie texts in. He says, no statue for John Calipari. Let him go. He claimed he loved Memphis when he came. He loved Kentucky. Now he loves Arkansas. It's all about him. No statue. I kind of agree with that. I mean, look, John Calipari was a fantastic coach. He was incredible at Memphis. Like, if you take away all of the being upset, the anger, the frustration of him leaving, which I share and I've shared in that, like, his teams were fantastic. Those were great Memphis Tiger basketball years. But like you said, I know he went very deep in the NCAA tournament. He went to the national championship game, but again, that season didn't exist according to the NCAA. Excuse me. I don't think you build a statue. I think the statues come for the coaches that were difference makers on and off the court, like Larry Finch. Larry Finch has a statue for obvious reasons, right? Like, there are plenty of player, coach, what he did for the community. Like, there are so many reasons why Larry Finch should and does have a statue at the University of Memphis in front of the basketball facility. Great coaches are out there, but I think statue worthy is for those that are, the very few that are deserving, and I think there's only so few, and I think the one in Memphis history is Larry Finch.
That's how I feel about it. You can be recognized,
Sure.
not have a statue. You don't have to go to those extremes. Brian, I was going to ask you, though, before we went to the break, following the commitment of Curtis Givens, although you said, the roster, it's hard to, predict what this team might be.
Yeah.
As of today, who do you think would be in that starting lineup for the Tigers as of May 20th, still 5+ months out from the regular season?
Okay. So we're saying Dane Danger is not on this.
Let's just say
team.
no,
Okay.
just for the sake
Dane
of it.
Danger not on the team. All right. Well, let's start with the 5. Aaron Bradshaw's the starting center at 7'1". You got to throw him out there, the biggest guy on the court. I'll say Doug McDaniel is your 1. So you've got Doug 1, you've got Bradshaw 5. So now we need 2, 3, 4. I'll go Sincere Parker at the 2, starting 2. The 3's tough. The 3's really tough. I'll go Zachary Davis at the 4. Man, that 3's tough. Because, some of these guys I just don't know. Like, I wouldn't hate Hassan Abdul Hakim. Maybe if you could get him as like a really big 3, well then now we're talking about a small team that's playing real big if you got a 6'8" guy out there at the 3. But I just don't know, can he be your 3? I've heard people excited about Ashton Hardaway. He would be the ideal starting 3, I would think. But I have not seen anything that tells me he is a starting player. So I don't know. I think the 3's wide open. Maybe Sincere Parker's just really small. The problem is can you play Doug McDaniel at the 1 and Curtis Givens at the 2? That's pretty small backcourt, but could you play those two? Curtis Givens is 6'3", so he gives you a little more size, but can he play off ball? I don't know. I didn't watch as much LSU last year, so I just do not know if he can or not. If he can play off ball, then I think you might be looking at Doug McDaniel 1, Curtis Givens 2, maybe Sincere at the 3, Zachary Davis at the 4, and Bradshaw at the 5. Maybe.
I feel like offensively that lineup might be challenged, though.
It could be. Well, what's your 5 look like?
I would have Doug McDaniel at the 1 here to stay. I'll go Sincere Parker at the 2.
Yeah, I like
I've
Sincere at the 2.
been kind of flip-flopping between Julius Thedford and Ashton Hardaway for the 3.
Mm-hmm.
As of today, I'd probably go with Julius Thedford, and I'd go Davis at the 4 and Bradshaw at the 5. I think Curtis Givens comes off the bench.
Yeah. And, that is obviously very similar to mine. Julius Thedford, I think, is the wild card because obviously he looked really good in the games he played, but missed pretty much the entire conference slate with an injury. What does he look like in year 2? How does he come in off that injury? I think there's a lot of questions there, but yeah, I would love it. If you've got a Memphian in the starting 5, that would be really cool. I think a lot of people would get behind that. So, plenty of time to discuss what the roster looks like and what the starting 5 looks like. But definitely big news, Curtis Givens in his commitment to the University of Memphis. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals tonight, Minnesota and OKC. Can anybody explain to me why in the world we are starting with the Western Conference Finals instead of the Eastern Conference Finals? The Knicks and the Pacers have been resting. Pacers have been resting for a minute now. The Knicks, last time they played was Friday, so a little more rest. But instead, you've got the only number 1 seed that is left standing playing with only 1 day off in between games. Now, if this was something that was predetermined, before the season, we put the schedule together and we said, this is the latest date the Western Conference Finals can start or whatever, then I understand that. I don't think that's the truth, though, because I don't know what the difference is. I do know what the difference. Well, I was going to say, because actually might be something. I might be onto something. ESPN has Western Conference. I believe TNT has Eastern Conference. Tonight, TNT has NHL. And tomorrow night, the Knicks and Pacers will be on TNT. Well, that's exactly why. That's the reason, because ESPN and TNT have their hockey coverage as well, and because TNT was doing hockey tonight, they had to go with OKC and Minnesota tonight on ESPN, and then tomorrow we'll get the Eastern Conference with Pacers and Knicks. Okay, well that makes a little more sense. Other than like, why are you doing this to OKC? So I guess that poses the question now. Minnesota's been resting. OKC has not. Does that affect tonight's game in OKC? Right now, OKC, a 7.5 point favorite. Do the Thunder come out a little sluggish after that win, even though they were able to pull their guys with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter? Does that quick of a turnaround and that much rest for Minnesota, does that affect game one tonight?
I don't think so. I think OKC has proven throughout the season that they can operate on back-to-backs. They can operate on 36 hours of rest. We saw it in the Memphis series. We saw it in the second round at times against Denver, going to elevation. I don't think so. I think especially with them not having to travel after Game 7 and being able to stay in OKC. And like you said, they were able to pull their starters just barely into the fourth quarter. And with their depth too, I don't think that they'll be challenged by having fatigue going into this game one. I do think that the Timberwolves, though, I think it might be a bigger disadvantage for the Timberwolves. It might be like a rust thing, being off for a week. I think that we could maybe see some of that. We saw that in game one against the Warriors. They had 88 points. They struggled to shoot the three. So maybe we see some of the same in game one against OKC tonight.
Yeah, it's a good point. Obviously, the Thunder, it's kind of that argument of rest versus rust on the other side of it, of like, hey, you've been locked in on big time basketball. You can just continue that instead of, like Minnesota, where they've been kind of sitting around and now have to really amp back up. You mentioned the depth for OKC. I feel like I say it all the time. And I'm looking in the reflection of the guy I'm about to talk about right now, Alex Caruso. What a fun player. I mean, every time I watch that guy play, he excites me because he does not care at all who you are, how big you are. He is going to go after you. What he did to Jaren when they were playing Memphis earlier in the playoffs and was just giving Jaren the work. On Sunday against Jokic, what he was able to do against, for my money, the best player in the world and give him issues. I went through 22 turnovers for Denver in Game 7. 8 of them, Alex Caruso had a role in, like was on the ball, either poked the ball away or was playing great defense to force the turnover. He played a factor in 8 of the 22 turnovers, which is incredible. And then 2 of the turnovers that he did not have anything to do with, he ended up scoring the basket in transition. So that guy's active. That guy is just incredible defensively. I talked about it after OKC was eliminated, where Zach Kleiman comes to the podium in the exit interviews and says, we don't have those type of guys that Memphians want on the team. We don't have dogs on our teams that Memphis fans want. That is kind of that style of the city that can go out there and compete. You know who would fit great? Alex Caruso. Like, that guy would be phenomenal in Memphis. I don't think you're ever going to get him because he's now shown, like, you're not going to be able to get him for cheap, but he is an incredible player coming off the bench, playing his role. He's not a guy that's like, I need all these shots offensively. He's going out there and is like, I want to play defense. I want to get after somebody, and I'm just going to play my role, and it's really fun to watch.
Talk about a career trajectory. A guy that started in the G League, made his way over to those Lakers teams, was kind of a meme for a little while on that Lakers championship team, and now he's a guy widely regarded as one of the best defenders in the NBA. And what's crazy is he likely won't find himself on an all-defensive team this year. There will probably be 2 or 3 other Thunder players that will take those spots over him, which is crazy to say about how good the Thunder are defensively.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point because, I mean, you just watch the Thunder and the way that they suffocate you defensively, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, watching Game 7 and just some of those, I mean, Denver crosses half court and they pick up the ball, and next thing you know, OKC's in transition on the other end and, scoring points off turnovers. It's really impressive what they have been able to do. Tonight is going to be interesting. I'll ask you, OKC minus 7.5. Does OKC cover, or is this game closer?
I think OKC covers tonight. I think we see like a 15 to 20 point win tonight. I like OKC to come out. I think Minnesota will struggle to shoot the ball. It'll be a feel-out game for them. I like OKC to cover.
All right. Well, I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. Obviously, the Timberwolves, we talked about this a little bit yesterday about how, nobody picked them to beat the Lakers. They go on to do that. Nobody picked them to beat Golden State. They go on to do that. And so we'll see, are they able to do it one more time against OKC and advance to the NBA Finals? I think it should be a fun series. I think, obviously, Anthony Edwards, what can he do against that OKC defense will be a lot of fun. But that game will get tipped off 7:30 tonight on ESPN. I mentioned it looks like a lot of people tweeting out that Jordan Hudson has at least told one person that she and Bill Belichick are engaged to be married. So, according to this is I guess you would consider a secondary source, like somebody that talked to Jordan Hudson says that she said this, so I don't know, it feels like we might be playing telephone a little bit, but according to somebody that knew somebody that talked to Jordan Hudson, she allegedly is engaged to Bill Belichick.
Congratulations to the happy couple. Another ring to add to Bill Belichick's wide array.
I guess so. I don't know if I'd be. I guess, I'll let him do his thing. Congratulations to Bill Belichick, if that is true. I guess that'll be something to pay attention to. Never in a million years. If you had told me 2 years ago, in the year 2025, in May of 2025, Bill Belichick will be coaching North Carolina, and instead of talking about anything on the court, you'll be talking about her 24-year-old girlfriend. I said, what are you talking about? What in the world? Bill Belichick? First off, Bill Belichick in college? No. And then, he's gonna be dating and maybe engaged to a 24-year-old? No chance. But even if you had said that a year ago when he took the North Carolina job, that in May, people would be questioning, will he even coach a game at North Carolina? Because of what his girlfriend is doing behind the scenes. I don't know. It is weird. It is not Bill Belichick. And that's what a lot of these stories you read about this whole situation is saying is Bill Belichick has always been in control of everything. He is that guy that wants his hands on everything and wants to decide how everything is going to go. And now he's doing none of that and is letting the worst person handle all of that. Pablo Torre finds out. I know we got to get to a break. Pablo Torre finds out he was the one that came out and had the report that North Carolina had banned Jordan Hudson from the practice facility, and then North Carolina came out and said, that's not the truth. It's 100% the truth. I completely believe Pablo Torre and his 11 people that he got quotes from that said that she was banned. Somebody told him that they worked on a commercial or something that Jordan Hudson was a part of that she was there for because Bill Belichick was in. And this person said that Jordan Hudson was the worst person she had ever worked with. He or she, I don't remember who it was. The worst person that this person has ever worked with. And they had worked with literal sociopaths. But Jordan Hudson topped all of them. So
be careful, Bill.
Yeah, when I hear these reports now of she's an issue, North Carolina doesn't want her around, I completely believe all of them. So who knows? Maybe now she will be Mrs. Belichick. But we got to get to our final break. When we return, I want to talk a little baseball. Fun night last night. Cardinals win again over a Detroit Tigers team that's been really good. It included a rain delay, some other crazy stories from the baseball world. We will do that on the other side. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Wolo and Friends.
Sports56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
They're taking care of business in Memphis right on the river with Grind City Brewing and all of their great products. Look, this was a dream come true for a father and son duo. And if you have not been to that brewery right on the river, just to the north of downtown, you're really missing something special. And now you can't miss their products. Wherever you go, you see a brand new label. It's clean, it's beautiful, it's distinctive. You'll know Grind City Brewing, and of course you know their products like Poppy's Pills, that great Pilsner, or Tiger Tail, that very creative craft malt liquor. There's the new Thaddeus Amber Lager. That is absolutely a great light beer. There's the India Pale called God Hopper. It's outstanding. And then there's the Belga, the Belgian-style wheat ale. They keep bringing hits at Grind City Brewing. Ken Garland, you are in your 72nd year of business. Your son William is now joining you. What do you think is the key to your longevity in the building business?
My dad started the business in 1965, and I think being on the job sites daily and being accessible to homeowners has been a key to our success.
You guys have a work ethic, as you like to say. You're not hiring people to be on the site. You guys are there every day.
We interact with the subcontractors multiple times a day on each job site. I think that has been a key, as well as using the same subcontractors 20-plus years in most cases.
When you talk about materials, what is the first thing you're thinking about when somebody comes to you to build a home?
We're just trying to meet the expectations of the client and the homeowner and the architect and give them what their dream is.
When you get a Ken Garland home, what do you guarantee?
We'll be there after the job is finished. We're still accessible to all our clients.
Now I need to know, how do I get a hold of Ken Garland?
You can reach us at kengarland.com.
Top Gun is the largest indoor range in the Mid-South, but size isn't their only difference. Top Gun has the best instructors with over 300 years combined experience and classes all the way from first shot to master marksmanship. Plus, Top Gun is affordable. Gold membership is just $48 a month. That's just $1.60 a day for a limited range time. Free gun rentals with purchase of ammo and members lounge access. Top Gun 2770 Whitten Road and TopGunMemphis.com. Always ship with the best. Top Gun Memphis. Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I'm here at Town Village Audubon Park interviewing a new resident, Carolyn. Share with us why you chose Town Village.
Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and staff, I was hooked. From restaurant, bistro, 3 meals per day, housekeeping, transportation, security, health care, physical therapy, exercise room, and even a heated pool and spa. Come see us and make your new home in Town Village.
Visit us and call Daniel at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342.
There's no place like home, Town Village.
Hey, Rock and Ronnie, you got a new showroom. Let's wait time for service and some amazing deals over there at Gossett Hyundai South Mount Moriah.
Randy, we've got it going on at Gossett Hyundai South of Mount Moriah. 2025 Hyundai Tucson SE, $288.75 per month and 3.99% for 72 months is available. How about a 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe SEL, $349.89 per month and 3.99% up to 60 months is available. Plus, 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz XRT all-wheel drive, now just $37,180.
And you always get peace of mind with America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
And remember, no wait service on the ride every day.
So get to Gossett Hyundai South, 2660 Mount Moriah, online, HyundaiMountMoriah.com.
Only a couple minutes left for us. I did want to talk a little bit of baseball from last night. 2 fun games. One, obviously, the game I was keeping a very close eye on last night. The St. Louis Cardinals, they get the win over Detroit. And then a really great outing from Sonny Gray, a guy that in his last outing against Philadelphia gave up 7 earned runs on 8 hits and a walk in 3.2 innings, only struck out 4 in that game against the Phillies. Last night against the Detroit Tigers, a really strong Detroit Tigers team, he goes out there 6 innings, no runs, only 3 hits, has a season-high 10 strikeouts, and gets the win for the Cardinals. Cardinals go on. There was a rain delay in the 7th inning, but they go on to get a massive victory over the Detroit Tigers. But the wildest game of the night was Cubs-Marlins last night. I don't know if you saw anything about this, Elisha, last night, but the Marlins come out, they score 2 runs, back-to-back home runs to start the game. Jesus Sanchez hits the leadoff home run. They get the 2-batter. He hits home run, so they're up 2-0 to start the game over the Cubs. Cubs make it 3-2 in the top of the 4th inning. Bottom of the 5th inning, the Marlins retake the lead with a 4-run inning, make it 6-3. The Cubs come right back in the top of the 6th with 4 runs of their own to go up 7-6, and then with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, trailing 7-6, with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, nobody on. The Marlins go ground rule double, walk. So now they have 2 on, and Jesus Sanchez steps up and hits a leadoff triple. So what a night for Jesus Sanchez last night. A leadoff home run, had a stolen base in the middle of the game, and then hits the walk-off triple. I mean, that is incredible. I think I saw something, first player, I don't know if it was ever, but certainly for a really long time, that has hit a leadoff home run to start the game and a walk-off triple to end the game. So really good stuff out of Miami last night. And if you're a Cardinals fan, that's great news because the Cardinals win, the Cubs lose. It's a great day to be a Cardinal fan. A lot of baseball today. We mentioned college baseball as well. The conference tournaments getting kicked off today. Already games in action. Games will continue throughout the day into the night. But right now, you've got ACC action. Cal up 12-2 over Miami. We do have SEC action. Alabama currently up 2-1 over Missouri in the bottom of the 4th inning. Later today, Kentucky, Oklahoma in the SEC, and then South Carolina, Florida at 5:30 in the SEC, and the night will wrap up with Texas A&M and Mississippi State. So a good day in the SEC baseball tournament. Ole Miss will play tomorrow afternoon. We'll have coverage of that game right here on Sports 56. But we got to get out of here, and our time is done. So much that we had to get to today that I did not expect last night, but a lot of news coming out in the sports world. That's the fun of all of this. Don't go anywhere, though, because Johnny Radio, he's coming up next. I know he'll have a ton to talk about. Again, big thanks to Elisha for being with me this morning. Big thanks to everyone out there listening. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.